All right, so the blank page you have in this packet is we're going to take a couple of notes on this page, and then together we're going to do this last page, which covers a little bit of, here we go, some perspective drawing. So we're going to do, on this blank page here, we're going to take a couple of notes. Okay, so basically what I write down on the paper here, I want you guys to write down in your little packets as well. So we're going to talk about ways to create depth. Okay, first one is by size. You can create the illusion of depth in space by simply changing the size of something. If you were to draw two things next to each other, put them the same size, it creates the impression that they are next to each other. One is not further away. But if you draw the same two objects and one smaller, then this automatically creates the impression that one is close, one is far away. Okay, some of these are really obvious, really, really simple to see. Number two is the placement. So if you have your canvas, your paper, your picture plane, and you put that thing down towards the bottom of the page, and I put another thing a little bit higher above that, it creates the impression that it's further away. Okay? I can also incorporate the use of size, put it even higher on the page and smaller, it creates the impression that it is even further back into space. Okay? Without anything else in that square, it's going to create the impression that this is further away just because of where you put it on the picture plane. Okay? Number three is where we start to get a little bit tricky. Those first two are pretty easy, pretty obvious. Number three is by adding shading. Okay? Anytime you add some shadows to something, it's going to create the illusion that there is some real three-dimensional form. Okay? So I want to review these. Hopefully you've gone over these in a beginning drawing class. But if it's been a while, you can't remember, then I want to review those for you. So let's take this ball and make it into a sphere. Okay, we're going to put it on a table. So I'm going to darken in the back over here to separate out the foreground from the background. Okay, so go in, darken in this background over here. Now if I include a shadow, and darken that in, now it implies that this is sitting on this table and blocking the light. The light would be coming in from this direction up here and would be casting a shadow. So this is called our cast shadow. Okay, it's also going to create some shadows on the object, and those you need to be aware of. I'm going to zoom in here so you can get a really good view of what I'm talking about. So if the light's coming in from this direction, then that means the shadow, the moment the object starts to turn away from the light source, it's going to start to go into shadow. So the moment it turns, it would be over here, and if I follow this also, it's going to be about right over here. So our shadow is going to look something like this, and the ball's a little heavy in the caboose there. So the shadow is going to wrap around it kind of like this. So this creates the dark side of our object and followed by the light side of the object. And yes, you can insert your Star Wars analogies here. Here's your Jedis. Here is your Sith Lords. Okay? So you have those two areas there. So now I have the three shadows that I've created. I have the three areas: the light side, the dark side, and the cast shadow. Okay? On your cast shadow, if you look really carefully and really closely at an object that's being hit by a strong light source, the darkest shadows on the object are actually right along this edge right over here, especially a round object. Not on this far edge over here. It's actually over here because light likes to bounce off surfaces, and it actually will illuminate this area over here. So this is what we call the core shadow. C-O-R-E, core shadow. And then this little area right there is called your reflected light. If you're having troubles making your object look three-dimensional or making it look like it's going to stand out, you probably need to exaggerate a little bit of that reflected light in there to give it some more dimension. Okay, so as the light comes down, it's bouncing off the surface of the table here and illuminates the underside of our little sphere over here. So if I can darken those up to kind of separate that out, if I can darken my core shadow or my cast shadow a little bit, you can see that it's going to stand out and look a little bit more convincing. Okay. There's also two other parts that you need to know about on the light side as well, because light hits one area, especially on a round object like this, a little bit more intensely than it does the rest of it. So the one spot where it's catching all of the light, let's see, is your highlight. Okay, that's the area either closest to your light source or the area facing directly your light source. The area that's catching some light but not the strongest source of light is called your halftone. Okay, and we are going to refer to these quite a bit these first couple weeks of oil painting, because I really want you to understand how to control shading, especially with shades of gray, as we get into painting. Because oil painting tends to emphasize forms. It's easy to do that. Okay, so that was a lot. Anytime you can add a shadow, especially if you can add highlights, core shadows, cast shadows, halftones, reflected lights, it's going to create a great deal of depth. Okay, number 4 is contrast. Okay, when you are looking at an object that is close to you, the shadows actually appear much darker. So let's say, here's my picture plane. And I'm going to draw this sphere again. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Right there. I'm going to put it down towards the bottom of the picture. I'll draw another one over here, a little bit smaller, a little bit higher on the page, so it looks like it's further away. If I add some shadows, if I make the shadows on the object that's closest to me a little bit darker, a little bit more contrast, it's going to look closer. Okay? So if I put these shadows here and I have a lot of contrast to them, then it's going to create the appearance of being much closer than the other object. Okay? This is really apparent when you look across the valley. If you're up on the 3rd floor of the school and you look across over at the Ochre Mountain Range there, you'll see that the mountains appear really light in valley. You don't see a lot of dark shadows, of course, but that's because it's so far away. So the further away you put it, is the shadows will become lighter. Okay, and this also refers to, or plays into the next one I'm going to tell you, is detail. Okay, if you have the same picture plane, make sure I have enough room for my last one, and then let's say it's a landscape. So I'm going to put the horizon back over here. I'm going to really lightly put in maybe a row of pine trees because it's a beautiful little landscape painting that I want to create. Then you have a row that's a little bit closer, so I can go a little bit darker with those. Maybe a little bit taller. Oh, you can't see that very well. I'm going to move this up a little bit. We have some mountain range here in the back, really, really light because it's far away. But if this is a field, how would I handle this? Because I have some depth right here. I can see with the trees that I've created already. But the field looks pretty flat. So what I would need to do is emphasize the detail so that down here across the bottom, I would see maybe individual blades of grass or plants growing. If there was a stream here, maybe I'd see individual rocks. But I'm going to see up close a lot of detail. And as it gets further back, that detail is going to get smaller. The shadows aren't going to be as dark. Okay, so more detail up front, less detail in the back. Okay, all of this, these three, are also known as atmospheric perspective, where they are ways that you use or create the appearance of atmospheric perspective. There's one more, and that's the use of color. Color always changes, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But this is just referring to shading. Okay, the last one is to use linear perspective. Okay, and that is the concept that when you're drawing something in perspective, you start off with your horizon line, and there's a vanishing point or a point that everything's going to meet. Okay, so if you have an object, let's say this box right here, you're looking at this side straight on, so you're going to see that flat, but all the top and the two sides are going to go off at an angle. Well, to figure out what the right kind of angle is, you're going to line those corners up to a vanishing point like this to get those angles, and then you can draw the back sides there. Okay? That creates the appearance of what is referred to as linear perspective. Okay? So that's what we're going to do on this last page. Here, let me back it up. Turn over to the last one here. So for this page here, you are going to draw, I've got a cupboard here. We're going to be using this vanishing point here. There's 1 point, so it's called 1 point perspective. And we're going to draw each of these 6 objects so that it looks like they were fitting on these shelves. Okay? But I put a little twist to them. They're not box objects. Well, 1, 2, 3 of them are, but the other 3 have cylindrical forms to them. So I want you to kind of, you're going to have to do some freehand perspective on this one. Okay? So hopefully this is fresh in your mind, something you've gone over. I know most art teachers or beginning drawing teachers will spend some time talking to you about how to draw things three-dimensionally. If not, this is a review, and if this is really hard for you, please don't feel bad. It's just one thing that some artists focus on, some artists don't. But I would like you to have a little understanding of this before we move on to some actual painting, because that's what's next. So let's first draw the boxes. So let's first pick a pizza box. So the first thing you're going to do is draw this rectangle here. And we want to make sure it fits on the shelf, and so I'm going to make sure it fits within this bottom square here. So I'm going to draw the rectangle for the side of the pizza box that's facing me directly. Use a ruler, okay, so you get nice straight lines. Okay, so this is the pizza box, P-I-Z-Z-A. Now, I'm going to take my ruler and line it up to each corner of this pizza box. And I'm going to draw really light so I can erase these lines when I'm done. Or at least erase the parts I don't need. Okay, now it's really close on the edge here, so I don't see much of it. But that's because I'm really close to being directly underneath the vanishing point. If I was over a little bit more, I wouldn't need to do this bottom corner. But because I'm just to the right here of the point a little bit, I'm going to see just a thin sliver of this side. Okay, you can draw these anywhere you want to, in any position you want to. That's fine. If you want to do something fancy and turn it on its side, that's fine. Just keep in mind that if it's over to the side, you're going to see the side of one of your objects. Okay, if it's directly below, you'll just see the top. So now I'm going to take this corner also back. Okay, then I'm going to draw the back edge to the pizza box as well. So I'm going to hold my ruler parallel, scoot it back, and this you just kind of have to decide whatever feels about right. So I'm going to start at this line that comes from this corner and draw straight across until I meet this line that comes from this top corner. Not this one down here, but this one up here. So it's going to go straight across. In fact, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Let's do it this way. it a second to focus. There we go. And I need to get this side right over here. So I'm going to take my ruler, hold it parallel to this edge, scoot it back until I find that corner right there, and then it's going to go straight down. Okay? Then I can darken these lines here a little bit. You can go ahead and leave these lines in here. You don't need to erase them, but because it helps to see them in there, but sometimes it can get confusing. So just darken those up a little bit, and then I'm done. That's the pizza box. Okay? I'll do the same thing for the cereal. Start off by drawing my rectangle. This one's going to be a vertical one. Take the corners to the vanishing points. So I got one here, back, here, back, and here. Whoops, line it up to the point. Here, back as well. Now I've got my sides that go back. Then I need to create an end so they don't go on forever. Take my ruler, hold it parallel to this side, scoot it back, decide about what looks right. And then I'm going to draw my line here between those areas. And then I need to do the same for the top. Hold my ruler parallel, scoot it back, straight across. Okay? Next one, stick of butter. Same thing. Draw my rectangle. This will be a big stick of butter. It's the size of a pizza box. Okay, draw my rectangle. Line the corners up to the vanishing point. Okay, so now they go back to the vanishing point. Now I'm going to draw the back edge. So hold my ruler parallel to this top edge, scoot it back as far back as I want it to go, draw my line across, connecting those points there, and then do the same thing over here. Hold it parallel, bring it down. Okay, there's the butter. Cereal, C-E-A-L. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is a cylinder in perspective. Now, a cylinder in perspective is a little bit tricky. We start off by drawing a box, but then we're going to turn it into a cylinder. Okay? In perspective, which then becomes an oval. So if you're looking at a circle straight on, of course it's going to be a circle, but the moment you start to see it in perspective, that circle no longer is a circle, but it becomes an oval shape. You draw it as an oval. So the closer you are to your eye level, notice how flattened that oval becomes. So it's closer to your eye level, you're going to see less of it. It's going to be more squished. Further away from your eye level, it's going to tilt down. You're going to see more of the top of it. Okay? So if we start off with doing the plate, this is how I would do it. Okay? So let's start off, let's do it down here. So I'm going to start off by drawing just a horizontal line. Okay? Then I'm going to take the ends of that line and draw them back to the vanishing point. I'm starting to get a lot of lines, so I'm going to keep these pretty light. But they do go back to the vanishing point. Okay? Then I'm going to decide how far back I want it to go. And there's a way to do this exact, but we're just going to eyeball it. So decide kind of, if this was in perspective, how far back it would go. I just want to make sure that this back line isn't past this over here, because this is the wall. This is the back of the cabinet, and the plate will go through the cabinet. So we don't want to do that. I want you to draw it so it fits in this space. Okay? Now the next thing you're going to do is we're going to, you can measure this out, but again, I'm going to eyeball it and put a little mark at the midpoints of these lines, where the middle of each of these sections is. Okay, this is the less exact method to do it, because this is going to be serve as your guide to know what your oval shape is supposed to look like. So now I'm going to start at this point here, and I'm going to slowly, very lightly, because I may make mistakes and I may have to erase it and try it again, is draw that curve that comes around, touches at that point, and then curves around, and then touches at that point there. So it's going to touch at each of those points. Okay, and that's how you would make that oval in perspective. Now you can put the middle, you can put the middle circle in there too if you want to. A little rough, but that works. Okay, there's your plate. Now it gets tricky when you want to make it into a cylinder, but not really too bad. So to make, let's put the can of soup right next to it. So I'm going to do the same thing. And all I do is do the same thing, but then add sides and a bottom to it. Okay, so I'm going to start up here, because the can of soup is going to be raised off the ground here. So I'm going to start off by drawing my horizontal line, taking the ends to the vanishing point. Eyeballing about how far back I think it should go. Okay, kind of goes right in line with that. Then mark the middle points. And then draw my circle. Okay, now to turn this into a cylinder, all I need to do is bring down the side. So I'm going to find this point right here, take my ruler, hold it perpendicular, draw my line down, and do the same for this side over here, draw my line down. Now if you wanted to make it really technical, you could bring the box down and repeat the box, but again, I want you to kind of get a feel of how to do this just by sight. So then the bottom of the can can't be straight across because it's even further below your eye level, so it's going to have even greater curve than the top part is. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball that and make sure it has a curve that's even more curved than this top part is right there. Okay? And then let's put the bowl right up here. The bowl is going to be very similar, but instead of bringing it straight down, we're just going to wrap it around. Oh, can't see that. So the bowl is going to be really similar to the way we did the can of soup, but instead of bringing it down and over, we're just going to wrap it around across the bottom like that to make it a bowl. Okay? But the steps are the same. So I'm going to start off by drawing my horizontal line. Now you can see it gets a little confusing with all these other lines in here. So if they get in your way, you can erase them. Let's do that just so you guys can see. Back that up a little bit. Sorry, bouncy camera. So bring that across. Take the ends to the vanishing point. Draw the back parallel to the front. Now remember, it's higher than this one, so you're not going to, the oval needs to be more condensed, squished. Mark off the middles. And then draw my oval in. Okay. Then, for the sides, instead of coming straight down, I'm just going to make it a bowl, whatever shape bowl you want it to make it. Just draw that in. can make it a glass bowl. So you can kind of see the bottom of it. As long as it fits in that shelf there. A little close on the side there, but that's it. That's how you do it. So hopefully that helps give you an idea of how perspective is used and how you're supposed to use linear perspective to make these objects look three-dimensional. Thanks.